Welcome to No Free Lunch, Africa's freshest business and tech podcast with me, your host, Greg Stewart. Our topic today is why bolting on AI is a losing strategy. And with me today to unwrap this topic is Joel Rothman, the founder and CEO of Insdi, a South African no-code digital platform built specifically for insurers and financial services companies. Joel is a South African tech entrepreneur and insurtech specialist with over 15 years in insurance technology, digital transformation, and product strategy experience. Welcome to No Free Lunch, Joel. So, Joel, to start off with, we hear a lot of claims with AI, and it's not that I'm an AI skeptic. I think there are applications where it is proving itself, but a lot of claims are coming out of the AI industry. There's a gazillion consultants in the marketplace telling people this and that and the next thing, and some claiming that costs are slashed up to 90%. But if one takes a look at the latest reports like Simplify, Deloitte, McKinsey, and that kind of report that's coming out, recent reports show that most insurers are still stuck in pilot phase with fewer than 15% able to prove measurable ROI. And many quietly admitting the sort of hidden integration and charge management costs that have been stuck away here and there, and that those costs are actually eating a big chunk of the expected gains. What's your view on that gap? Are we overhyping returns? Or is the likes of your company seeing clients achieve those kind of numbers in real South African deployments? And if so, what's the secret sauce? Right.
The extensive consulting going on with very little to be shown for us. And I think up until recently, I would say yes. I think, to be honest, it is still a very, very new field.
Sure.
I think whether you're a consultant or whether you, even if you're a technology professional, the reality is that AI in its current form has not been around for long. And I think there's a lot of exploratory work going on at the moment. You know, somebody once said to me, if you're on the bleeding edge, it hurts. It costs. And I think we're definitely seeing, we're seeing a lot of that. I think what is important is that the learnings do get shared almost in
Right.
the public forum, you know, in the forum of ideas and shared knowledge, so that companies can collectively learn from this and move forward fast. There's definitely, absolutely value to be gained from this. And I guess we'll get into more of what the pros and cons are of this new AI world. But I think, there have been some expensive pilots and lots of lessons learned. And we know a lot of these pilots have been shelved, there's no doubt, because you've got a lot of inexperienced teams trying to make sense of technology while adding value in. And I think that's the adding value part is sometimes lost when we get focused on the shiny things, the new technology.
Yeah. And I also think that there's probably a lot of pressure coming downwards from senior management that have, made claims and are saying, we're going to revolutionize our business, and we're at, as you say, the bleeding edge, and expecting things that aren't necessarily doable right now, or are probably doable but it takes time to make that happen. If one has to look back at things like machine learning, it's taken decades to develop machine learning to the point where it is at now. And I was actually at an AI summit yesterday. And the point about this is that there's so much talk about this. I think in some respect, there's too much talk, and there is a sense of hype happening, and people there were saying, well, Africa can leapfrog the rest of the world with AI. And I'm going, but hang on a second, only about 40% of Africa has connectivity. There's hundreds of billions of dollars shortfall in terms of infrastructure build, such as electricity and data centers and networks and all these other things that are required for that to be a reality. Let's not talk about leapfrogging. Let's actually just build something sensible. And I think, I like to have sort of a more grounded approach to this, notwithstanding the fact that there are, opportunities. And I think there needs to be a distinction made between the opportunity and the hype. So let's talk a bit about the AI adaptation trap. You speak about the whole bolting on of AI, and I think this is one of those areas that is a real problem with AI implementation, is people are trying to bolt things on instead of actually going back to the drawing board and going, okay, how do we reimagine this whole thing? How do we make this AI process part and parcel of our operation, rather than something we just try to plug in? The old thing, just find a plug in and add it on, can often create a headache. Talk to us a bit about that and what your experience around that has been.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that businesses need to wrap their heads around, is that AI isn't just this tool that you plug in. It's not a word processing tool or something that you use like that. And maybe, I think the challenge here is that in your personal use, AI is quite tactile in a way. You can experience it quite quickly. You go to ChatGPT and bang, it comes up with something quite impressive. You can, now you can get PowerPoint presentations out of these AI tools. It feels a bit magical and it's near instantaneous. And I think what often happens is then business leaders think the quick solution is you plug it in, and we're gonna get meeting notes automatically out of our meetings. It's going to prepare the agenda for us. It starts taking away a lot of that busy work, and that's fine. I think we've seen AI has been quickly adopted in a co-pilot mode of working, where it assists with those day-to-day things. Whatever you're doing, it just takes away some of the admin for you. But I think the real opportunity here is for businesses to take a step back and actually say, hold on a sec, if we're to start this business again with AI now being in play, what would our business actually look like? And that's a big challenge. We know that's difficult in any organization, small, medium, large. Challenge your status quo. Number one, we know that's got to be a top-down initiative, and secondly, most of the businesses, especially the bigger businesses that I work with, there's a natural, what can we call it, an immune system that kicks in. So when you start bringing these kinds of initiatives into the organization, there's a natural resistance, and rightly so. I mean, your bigger companies, your listed companies, there's a reason that people invest in them, is because they generally a sure thing. They're not going to flop overnight, and it is because they found their magic source and they make it, and that's what they focus on. So I think the key here is when you look at the opportunity, it has to be holistic, and it has to really be reimagined from the ground up. I mean, I can tell you a little bit about some of the things that made me step back recently. One of them was a site called Pulsia, which is AI slop. Yeah, you've heard of AI slop, hey, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Oh,
all this generative AI can generate a lot of AI slop,
yeah. Yes.
mediocre, whether it's text or it's images. You can immediately pick up, this thing was generated by AI. It's very mediocre. And the person who started Pulse here just took AI slop and reversed it. And what was amazing, though, is I went to the site and it just says, tell me a bit about yourself. And it was as simple as saying, have you got a LinkedIn profile? So when I said, tell me about yourself, it was just, point me to something about yourself.
Yeah.
What industry are you in? It asked just a few leading questions, and it went away and it said, okay, I'm gonna build a business for you. And it came back with a few options, and I said, oh, this one sounds quite interesting. It was a new insurance product, and it said it's gonna build this. And this thing literally went away. It built out the business plans. It built out the marketing plans. It got to the point where it had a fully working website where I could go and buy this insurance.
Okay.
And within, let's say, 2 hours, it was already saying, okay, I'm ready to start sending out posts on Facebook and X. And that's when I was like, whoa, let's put the brakes on. I mean, I'm just getting my head around this business opportunity. And what's really interesting about it is the business model. They've got the payment mechanism connecting with Stripe, and they just take 10% for themselves. So they're incentivized to get as many of these business opportunities up and running, generating revenue, and they're just going to take their slice from it. But I think what astounded me, though, was the speed at which this thing could literally put together something akin to a business. And I know, let's be fair, in insurance, there's other hurdles you've got to get through. There's regulatory check boxes. You can't just suddenly start marketing out there and off you go.
Even a license.
Absolutely. But I've personally, in my consulting capacity, worked with numerous startups, numerous new initiatives, and I know how long it's generally taken about 2 years to get from idea to actually fully operational, because you take 6 months to get your website going, you're trying to get your system side of things working, you're trying to get your regulatory paperwork in order. It literally took on average about 2 years to get that kind of business up and running. And I thought, my goodness, the one thing AI is very capable of doing is reducing that barrier to entry right the way down. And I think, Greg, one of the key things that I would want to emphasize in this discussion is that I think, if anything, there is a potential for a new wave of entrepreneurship. So I'm looking at it. I know you started this conversation off with kind of the risks and the hype, and I agree, there's certainly a lot of that at the moment. There are very real risks, no doubt, and we can go into that. That's another whole conversation. But I think it's also fair to balance it out with the opportunity, and I think it really is a call to action for whether it's persons who've been stuck in something of a dead-end career, or people feeling like, oh, I can see this next technological wave going to squeeze me out of my role. Actually, this is that opportunity to go and do something new. And I personally know 3 people who just this year have started new initiatives thanks to AI. And we can talk about that. But anyway,
I think that would be a great discussion. But going back to the original point about this whole reimagining your business, I think that is such a valid point that you raised. Is that if you look at a lot of businesses today, a lot of businesses were started in an era where AI didn't exist. And so AI couldn't have even been imagined as part of the structure or what it could perhaps contribute towards a business. And that's where the risk is of the whole plug-in or bolt-on mentality, is to say, well, how do I bolt it onto my existing business? And what you said there was such a wonderful point, because I think if people aren't going back to the drawing board and saying, well, in your words, if I had to start it again, how would I imagine it? How would I see it differently?
Yeah.
And that is, again, not an easy thing to do. It's not a comfortable thing to do by any means. But it's probably the most sensible thing to do, because it does change a lot of dynamics in terms of, we're not just talking about data, we're talking about an entire organizational structure that could be enhanced rather than just individual processes. And a lot of the consultants that I speak to, that's exactly what they're doing. They're going, well, we'll take your mundane processes and just automate them for you. So you're talking about automation of processes. That machine
Yes.
learning's been doing that for decades. But if you had to really imagine, and I'm also not sure that AI is yet at the point where you can say sort of intelligence is a bit of a misnomer, if I might say. But because intelligence would assume cognitive learning and cognitive learning ability, and not just responsive, as in machine learning, responsive to certain prompts or happenings. I think AI does a hell of a lot better, and obviously with a lot more processing power behind it. But if you had to go back and think about where this could end up in maybe a year's time, and the kind of rapid development of AI and where it's heading to,
Yes.
one would have to sit back and provide a lot more input and sensible strategy to say, let's reimagine this a bit. Let's build this up. And I love that idea. I love the concept. And I wish there were more people in the industry that were talking like that. So let's just go on to a bit about Insdi, and
Yeah.
talk to us about some of the successes you've had, and are people seeing a return on investment, and has it been because they've reimagined the business? Talk to us a bit about that.
So I think, and I'll talk about the before and the after. The after is still work in progress, but let me tell you a little bit
Right.
about it. So Insdi was born out of COVID. It was literally, I think, 2 weeks before COVID. Myself and my business partner Nick were having coffee, and both he and I have been working in the insurance industry for many years, and we were just moaning about certain things. Just the fact that we still getting sent PDF forms by our brokers that are not filled in, that kind of thing. You've got to start from scratch. To say,
Yeah.
goodness, how long have we been with them and it's got the blank form?
Yeah.
And we said things are so clunky. My wife had gone through a whole medical journey, and we were filling in a lot of admin at night. And most of the time, you couldn't just do it on your cell phone. You had to crank up the laptop and
Print
fill
something
things
out
in
and
there.
rescan it.
Yeah. So out of our own frustrations, and I said, well, I'm customer number one.
Yeah.
I want to give businesses, so Insdi standing for Instant Digital, give businesses a platform where they can really create a guided information gathering experience for their clients, where very
Right.
quickly a client can start providing that information in a structured way, provide documents, and just simplify the journey, great client experience, and make it easy for the business to then track what they're receiving through that platform. And we had great success. We've built a really great client base. Our clients have stayed with us, from the early days, and it was last year that we started saying, we really want to start adding some AI features to this, because if you think about it, information gathering, I think, is also going to change in its nature, because
Yes.
we have been used to PDF forms, but let's be honest, those days are over. I don't want to see another
Yeah.
PDF form, if, in my lifetime, if I can help it. But even these digital submission processes that we create, I'm thinking some people would want to just talk and
Yeah.
converse. That's one aspect. Others would like to just upload their documents and let the AI go and fill everything in and create the structured submission. And it was with that kind of thinking, we said, okay, let's build that future. Which was Alan Kay that said the best way to predict the future is to create it. So we said, let's do this. And we started on that journey last year, and something happened in December. I think it was Anthropic, who creates Claude and Claude Code, and exactly that. They released, I think it was a model called Opus 4.5, Opus version 4.5. And our developers started testing this out. And my goodness, they could build out, let's say 60% of what we'd taken 4 years to build. 60% of that they could build out in a 2-week period. And they said, look, we've managed to kind of rebuild this thing from scratch, just prompting Claude, and this is what we've ended up with. But I tell you, it was kind of a they say a gut punch moment, where you look at this and you go, goodness, what's our moat as a business if every second company out there can go and build this thing for themselves? Yeah. And I realized, okay, we're not the only business that will come to that realization when you see the power of some of the most advanced, the frontier models, as they call it. Yes. And I said, but then we need to leverage that to our advantage. We need to take our business experience, we need to take our client base, we need to then bring all of this together in a new platform that reimagines how that works, so that we are one step ahead of where things used to be. And it was a difficult decision because we were, both myself and my business partner, were kicking against. We had several quite heated discussions around this, but eventually we said it
and
is
probably
the right
a couple of panic attacks.
Absolutely. It is so difficult to take a 4-year investment in your business and say, we're going to have to reimagine this. The world has changed around us. The way the average person wants to interact with technology is rapidly shifting. And if you don't keep pace with that, you are just going to get sidelined. And that's the reality that we're facing. Yeah. And I mean, I think you saw just some of my thoughts on that is comparing it to the likes of the Blockbusters and some of these big companies that Nokia, for example, even, who were way ahead of the pack, saw the change and said, no, we're gonna try and protect our revenue stream. That's as a business owner, that's your natural instinct. I want to protect this. But I realized, actually, if we're not almost, it's a terrible word, cannibalizing our own revenue stream to explore this new world, then we're going to be behind in terms of the lessons. And it's just going to take the next company to come along and say, here's the opportunity, and they're going to run with it.
I think that's a really, really, really good lesson. And it was just this last week where Samsung actually shut down Samsung's messaging service. And if you think about things like the BlackBerry, I'll never forget my BlackBerry, what was it, the 866i or whatever it was. It was fantastic. It was, at that stage, probably the best mobile phones in the world at the time. And it had that whole messaging app and all that sort of thing. And they also, as you said, try to protect that and keep their own. And I think Apple's busy learning that lesson as well at the moment. So you need to be, I think, pragmatic about these things. And I think that's a wonderful lesson. And thank you for sharing that. It's I think it's right. I think your perspective on this provides a wonderful lesson for other business people, in that when things shift that rapidly, you can't just, play the same game. You have to, it's like the Springboks going to the World Cup and playing, on the rules that we won the 95 World Cup in.
Yes, I like that.
Even the players on the field and the kind of players and that sort of thing is shifted dramatically. And one can't play a different game with the same team. And that's a great lesson. So thank you for sharing that.
Can I quickly, just while you're on the sporting analogies, maybe I can just throw one other analogy in there, and that's there's certainly an aspect of, a rising tide lifts all boats. Okay, and I think certainly in terms of consumer technology and what we're getting exposed to, absolutely, just through our smartphones, we are getting exposed to some of the best in class technology that's out there. But I think when it comes to a business, it's slightly different to that. I say it's more like, if you think of a cycling peloton, you got to make sure you are actually with that peloton to slipstream. And that's where I come back to, get into the information sharing with your peers in the industry. Find out what works, what doesn't work. That for me is the information peloton, so that you can learn those lessons together. Hopefully share the pain, but you don't want to be a laggard at the back. You're eventually going to realize you're running out of steam and you're falling too far behind.
And then just looking ahead, do you think that there's going to be major shifts in the insurtech environment that you're in, and in the insurance industry overall? And do you think that this is going to lead to real good ROI gains to the bottom line?
I think, if we look back to kind of the advent of the internet era, Amazon emerged through that. Because why? Distribution costs were trending down, and suddenly that particular model was viable. Does it mean that a Walmart no longer exists? No, they still very established, they're very present, but they did have to start thinking differently about their business. They did have to introduce new ways of distribution to their own market, while keeping their secret sauce, and what worked for them. So I think there's room for both. I'm not one of these almost fatalists. It's, you're all doomed, and if you don't jump on this bandwagon, it's over. But I do think businesses do need to lean into this. There are some very pragmatic steps they can take to get ready for all this new wave of technology. I think you've heard it before. Get your data in order. I call it a data chassis. Make sure your data chassis is in place, because, man, if things are stuck in PDF documents and unstructured documents all over the place, don't think AI is going to start making sense of that. It's going to cause more confusion. AI amplifies what you've got. So number one, are you doing the right things? Okay, the age old management 101. Are you doing the right things, firstly? Secondly, then you can say, are we doing things right? And that's where you can amplify what you're doing with AI. So get the data in order, start looking at your business from a process point of view, reimagining it from the ground up, and actually being brutally honest with yourself. I think we can sometimes we've got those emotional attachments to things, but being brutally honest about that, and only then saying, okay, how would technology amplify this? How would it accelerate this? And then you can build on that as a long-term plan.
Joel Rothman, I think that's a marvelously sensible approach to it. And I really want to thank you for sharing some of your thoughts and insights. It's been a marvelous chat. We could probably have a few more of these, and maybe we will. But thank you so much. It's been a great chat, and thank you for sharing all of those insights with us today.
Thanks, Greg. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.